Well, here's the thing. What I wanted to do was just do an introduction for what this whole hootenanny is going to be, and to get something posted so that we could start getting people interested in talking about Lord of the Rings, because I'm always interested in Lord of the Rings. And so this is just a you're heavily invested. That's excellent.
Thanks,
Uh,
Manny.
so this video is a quick way for us to just do an introduction to what we're going to do, and then also like create some content. So
Perfect.
to quote Bo Burnham, "Daddy made you some content." So
Let's not.
all right. So we are calling this project. What are we calling it?
Hobbit forming.
Hobbit forming.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
There were a lot of names that were thrown at us in a short amount of time,
Which I really appreciate. And I'm very surprised by so many of the suggestions that came in.
Yes, excellent. And here's another question for you. Were you surprised by who these suggestions came from?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because Lord of the Rings and Hobbit is bigger than just nerd books,
Right.
which is kind of how I felt you thought about it when we were talking about it the other day.
Your feelings are valid, because it definitely is, to me, just something that you've been into your whole life, and I have just really not.
Okay. Understandable. Totally understandable. Because you are small-minded and
Wow. Nice.
no, just kidding. You're not small-minded. You have an average size mind, I'm
Thanks.
sure, for your head, which, as a Dooman,
It's gigantic.
it's a huge head. So we should explain to people who are just falling into this thing. My name is Jason, and Heather over there,
Hello.
I'm pointing right at her. Heather's my sister. And so she has a different last name because she got married to a Canadian.
That's
and so so we're brother and sister. We grew up in the same house, but we are worlds apart on
about 2,000 miles, literally.
You're literally in what I would call Middle Earth.
Oh, because I'm in the middle of the United States.
Yes. So this is like dispatches from Middle Earth, comma America, comma Earth. But we, Heather, why did this come about? What happened that triggered this conversation?
Yeah. So last month, our cousin Caitlin unexpectedly passed away, and Caitlin has been a huge part of our family, obviously, but Caitlin is also a massive nerd, and she wears that, or wore that badge with pride. It's so much so that, she had a tattoo of what it's called, like Hobbit Town. The Shire? I don't know.
The tattoo was Bilbo's house.
Okay.
And the house is called Bag End.
Bag End.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, the tattoo itself it's stunning.
It's amazing.
It is a beautifully done tattoo. Yeah. But anyway, Caitlin was a massive nerd, and Jason ended up doing the service for Caitlin's memorial on Saturday, and like the massive nerd that he is, tied Caitlin's nerddom and the Lord of the Rings specifically in one beautiful service. And there was one quote in particular that I'll let you talk about, but it wrecked me. And it was that moment that I was like, well, crap, I'm going to have to read these books. So do you want to say what the quote was?
Well, I used two quotes. So was it Gandalf or Sam?
Gandalf.
Okay,
Gandalf.
Gandalf.
The L is not silent.
Why would you have a silent L in English?
There are so many silent L's.
Give me a
salmon.
That's not an American word.
You don't say salmon. Do you say salmon?
No, I don't. I say salmon. But okay, but it's okay. Gandalf.
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 Gosh.
So
I
there's
need
going
to
to
write
be
these down.
there's going to be a bunch of those in this series, just so you know.
No.
Because yeah. Anyway, I'm already distracted by what you are doing. So the quote that I used was when Gandalf is explaining to Frodo the the problem that they have, where they have to destroy the ring, and Frodo says, "I wish this didn't have to happen in my time." And Gandalf's response is, "So do all people who live in such times. The only thing we have to decide is what to do with the time we have been given." I've read this book a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
So we, yeah, so that was part of the quote, and talking about Caitlin and being a determined person, and looking at our lives now with Caitlin absent. Like, if we want to honor her life, one of the ways we should do that is to be determined
Yeah.
to decide what to do with the time that we have. And that really is, I think, one of the most important pieces for understanding all of Lord of the Rings, this whole project, determining what to do with the time we have been given. So, yeah. So I'm glad that like resonated with you, because I think it's just one of the most powerful quotes in all of fiction. But yeah, so you said, I've never read this.
Yes.
And I
So
jokingly said, let's do a podcast.
Over spicy chicken teriyaki. Hey, we should do a podcast because you've never read this. I basically obviously have it memorized. So let's do it. And in my weekend emotional state, I agreed. And then, no joke, yesterday, Jason sends me a picture of his new copy of The Hobbit. How many copies of The Hobbit do you have?
I think in this house, I think I have 2 currently.
Okay.
I don't know.
House?
Yeah, I don't know where the other one is. And so I was like, I'll just get another one, because that's just what I'm going to have to do.
So, yeah.
I also have a couple digital versions. So I have a Kindle version of it, and I probably bought a Nook version of it at one time as well. And then I have the audiobook, but not the Andy Serkis version of the audiobook. It's a different one. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's what I currently have.
Got it.
I've had more. Like,
oh my gosh.
I've gone through a bunch of these because they're just great books, and I move and I lose a copy, or it falls apart, all kinds of things. So yeah, I love these books. So now, so I went and bought this version of it, and I like the way this one feels. Anyway, there's smaller versions that are harder to hold open.
I have a small version.
This size is like the perfect size to hold. So what version do you have?
I don't know.
Do you have it close by?
No, it's out on the couch.
How could you let it be so far away?
Because anyway, I started reading it last night, and both of my children, they are 9 and 11. We bought all of the Lord of the Rings books for Hendrix, my 11-year-old, and he started with The Hobbit, and I think he got to like page 5 before he was just like, there are too many people. I can't even. I left the book in Hobbit Town.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hobbit Town.
Gabe's right. But yeah,
Hobbitsville.
So yeah, anyway, it's an older, or it's part of like a box set, not like anything fancy, but I started reading last night, and I think I only got to page 13. I definitely prefer audiobooks lately, so I've also borrowed the audiobook from my library, and I will follow along with it, reading and listening, so that I really just get it into my soul.
That's the
best
way to do it. Did you check out the Andy Serkis version from the library?
They didn't have that. Well, they had that, but it was like a 10-week wait or something stupid like that. So
okay, so it's worth the investment. Get an Audible subscription for like just the months that you need it or whatever, and just get it, because Andy Serkis is the voice and the actor of Gollum in the movies. You'll see him in this book. You'll meet him in this book. Gollum, not Andy Serkis. But and so he's just got a great he's just a great narrator, and he's great. He was Ulysses Clow in the Captain America Civil War. He was the bad guy in Wakanda. All right.
Oh, okay. Yes, the guy that is missing an arm has like a split arm that he can shoot things out of.
Yes, yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, that guy.
Okay.
All right.
I like his voice. That's okay.
So he's got a great voice, and he's a great reader, and so it's just really enjoyable to listen to. I have the trilogy with his voice, but I don't have the Hobbit with his voice. So
got it.
It's something I think about every time I get a new Audible thing. Is like, should I do this? Should I pull the trigger and have two audio versions?
How would Kathy feel about that? She doesn't. She wouldn't care.
I don't know if she would care. So, I mean, it's not really something I would talk to her about.
Right.
So,
right.
Okay. Yeah. So, all right. So Heather, so we're going to read this thing, and we would encourage people to read with us. If you like, there are a lot of people in our little Facebook conversations are like, I've never read these. I'd love to read these. And so read along with us. That'd be great. So get a copy. I love books, but I think an ebook, an audiobook, or a print book, they're all books. They all count as reading. And so do whatever it takes for you to read the story, to enjoy the story. So what I think would be fun, and I don't want to be much longer with this little introduction. So what I think would be fun, Heather, is if you would give us a synopsis of what you think Lord of the Rings is all about.
I truly don't know. Here's the thing. I snuck into a theater when the first Lord of the Rings movie came out. With
Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring?
Sure. With Russ Hepner. So sorry, Russ, if you ever see this, I'm incriminating you. But we snuck into the theater and watched the movie, meaning he watched the movie and I fell asleep when they left Hobbit Town. The Shire. So I truly don't know what it is all about. I know that Liv Tyler is in it as maybe like a fairy or something, or a queen. No, okay. I know Elijah Wood and Dominic, whatever his name is, Moynihan and Sean. I don't know. Dominic something.
Sorry.
And Sean Astin are right. Sean Astin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then there's somebody else that I don't know. Are the hobbits that are going on their fun little journey. Yeah. You've told me they have to destroy a ring. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing it's some type of Horcrux that they have to destroy. And that's all. Right. And then apparently Gandalf.
I mean, it depends.
I wrote it down. But...
There are people who say Gandalf, and there's other people who say Gandalf, and I would say the Gandalf are the better people in the world.
Okay. So is that like the people that say GIF or GIF?
I guess. We can't get started on that conversation.
Sorry. That'll be another time.
Yeah.
Anyway, all I can tell you is that through page 13 of the version of The Hobbit that I was reading last night, all I could think of is, this is my nightmare. All of these unexpected people showing up and wanting to eat my food that I don't have. And wishing I had a please leave by 9 banner that I could put up. So, yeah.
Excellent. Okay. I love it. All right. You are going to have so much fun with this whole series, because there are things like, one of the things that you caught, I guess the ring is a Horcrux, right? Yes, kind of, sort of. Okay. And so you like Harry Potter.
I love Harry Potter.
And Jocelyn and I watched the movies. She would, my daughter, she would say, my dad made me watch these movies. I turned them on and she sat down.
She did mention something about like extended versions and like
Yes,
watching that
absolutely.
and loving that.
Oh,
Maybe not loving it, but she did mention.
yeah. There is only one way to watch these movies, and that is the extended version. They're
How
so
long
good.
is that?
Long enough. Deal with it. Um,
Okay.
like Ron Swanson and Toes, they are how long they are. I have
Okay.
the toes. I have. So yeah, so yeah, it's so good, and there's all kinds of things that people would say like, oh, I've read that before in Harry Potter or in this
Okay.
other story. Tolkien is the guy who like made those ideas popular and accessible, and so uh, Rowling, like she's lifting off of his work on all these kinds of things. Like he's the one who brought it into popular culture. So as people are getting started with The Hobbit, the first chapter is bananas.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I was like, what just happened? There's this guy he's got weird feet and he is smoking a big old pipe, and then a weird dude with a hat comes and is like, what do you mean by good morning? And I love that so much.
I liked that. I actually really did like that. But we need to save stuff
Yeah.
for
So
when we actually discuss this.
So yeah, we'll actually discuss this next time we get together. But what I wanted to say was like, you are entering into a world with this first chapter that is much bigger than you could ever imagine when you start reading this book.
At least the size of New Zealand, right?
Well, no, I mean it's Earth, but Tolkien, when we talk, you've heard the phrase world building, right?
Yes.
Like he did that, like with a whole world. And so there's so much stuff in these books that are going to be references to things that he was working on that he never published. But
okay.
I'll help you as we walk through this together. But there are all kinds of resources and YouTube videos that explain all these things as well, because the world is just so rich. And he is a World War I veteran. And he after he got home, he was writing these stories, and some of these stories he was writing to his kids like in letters back and forth, and then got home and like compiled it. And so this was finally published in 1937, I want to say. Yeah, 1937. And he most of the work for this book was actually because he wanted to have a place to play with language, because he
wrote, like, he made up Elvish. Is that?
Yes, Elvish and Dwarvish, and the Black Tongue. Like he actually made these languages, and so he's like, because he's a philologist, which is a lover of words. And so so he wanted to build a place where he could play with these words, and so there's
philologist,
like philology.
That's a made up word. So good job.
Philo is lover, like brotherly love, like Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Logos is word. Lology is ology is part of that word. Philology.
Okay.
So so it's lover of words. And so so that's his training. Good friends with C.S. Lewis.
I did know that.
Did you ever read Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and the Chronicles of Narnia? Okay.
Sure haven't. Is that going to be another podcast down the
I mean,
road,
maybe we could. Like, Heather, I don't know how much time you want to devote to these books. I have all the time in the world. So
I guess that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I love it. And so I think, let me throw this at you, and then we can wrap up here after this little piece, because we're already 20-something minutes into this thing. I think if we did one chapter a week.
That's totally doable.
Totally doable. Some chapters are longer than others, but one chapter a week. People read it, and if you have a copy, like a print copy, write some questions in the margins. If you have, or like if you're just listening on audio, like write down your notes or thoughts or questions on this book. If there are things that are like, what is that? And then, folks, send an email. Let us know. Like, and we have an email address. It's I set it up. It's a Hobbit
Hobbit forming?
forming, hobbitforming@gmail.com.
Perfect.
Hobbitforming@gmail.com. And so, Heather, you can ask your questions directly, or things that you notice, we in this conversation. But then also, if there's other people who have questions or thoughts for each chapter, shoot them at hobbitforming@gmail.com.
You can also send them here to the Hobbit Forming podcast channel or
Instagram, yeah.
And we'll get them there as well.
Right. And then what I'm going to do with this video is I'm going to isolate the audio and turn it into a podcast. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
My gosh.
And then I want to post these videos on YouTube. And so trying to make as many different ways. And so the YouTube is just going to be just my channel, because I don't want to have multiple channels. So just, I think it's Jay Duman, youtube.com/Jay Duman or something. So, so one chapter a week. That's all we're going to do. And so this book has a lot of chapters. I'm just looking real quick. The last stage, it has 19 chapters.
Okay. So almost half a year that we'll be talking about The Hobbit.
Yeah.
I need to just buy the audiobook, don't I?
Yeah, or read it like a person. But I've read this book a bunch of times, and there were things as I was reading this chapter that, like the good morning, like I love that section. But then when Gandalf reveals who he is to Frodo, and Frodo starts talking about him, and it's like, oh, you were the one who did this and this and this, and as he's making this list, it's like, you're more and more dangerous than I think you are. And so that like this whole idea of who is Gandalf. Oh my goodness, he's the best. He's so important to this whole world, and we're just meeting him as like this homeless wanderer who's disrupting this perfectly fine
good morning
gentleman. Yes, a perfectly fine good morning, and a gentleman who doesn't want any adventures here. No, thank you. Good morning. So I do think maybe that's how we should greet the podcast, and then dismiss as well. Like, good morning, and then good morning.
Good morning. I said
How's that
good
sound?
Morning.